Her main point was obedience to God is more than just doing what's right; it's confessing when we do wrong, and that was because we had talked about how David went through all these different things, and we saw how David really tried to fulfill what God wanted him to do, and yet he still had the problem with Bathsheba. And the difference was that when David sinned, he genuinely confessed and he tried to do what was right, versus Saul, who only confessed when it was pointed out to him, and even then you could tell it wasn't really heartfelt because he just wanted Samuel to continue to endorse his kingship and such. So this morning, so we saw David. He acknowledged Saul as the king. He was protective. He was just and faithful. Um, and so this morning we're going to get into Solomon. Just as a quick summary here of chapters 1 through 2. So the kingdom starts off, and Adoniah tries to become king. And that's in chapter 1. And he goes about this process primarily by getting Joab, the general that was primarily with David and really helped David get through his campaign, and Abiathar, the priest, he was like the lead priest at the time, to join him in just kind of saying that he was going to be king. The problem, of course, is that Adoniah, he's one of David's sons, but he's not officially, David's never made an official statement of this person is going to be the king. We can kind of gather from some of the conversation between Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan that kind of gets involved in this process, that David had made some kind of comment along the lines to Bathsheba that it was Solomon that was going to be king. But apparently he's made no formal declaration, so Adoniah decides, hey, I can do this. And so he just starts going through the process of making himself king. And so by bringing these two into the it's not really a conspiracy, but by bringing them into this decision, he's trying to legitimize what he's doing. So David instead finds out about it through Nathan and Bathsheba's comments, and says, nope, that's not what I intended. So he makes Solomon king instead. And so then, as David is going through this, Adoniah, when he finds out that Solomon's made king, he kind of runs off and he says, don't kill me, Solomon. I don't want to die. And Solomon says, all right, fine. You can live as long as you prove yourself to be an honorable man. So as David's on his deathbed, he brings over Solomon, and he kind of gives him a blessing to the kingdom. But he also says, hey, there's two guys in particular that were problems for me when I was king. One of them was Joab. Because if you go through the book of 2 Samuel in particular, and a little bit in 1 Samuel 2, you'll notice that Joab's not a nice guy. Even though Joab was David's general, Joab was also guilty of spilling innocent blood. In one particular instance in 2 Samuel, it's right after Saul has died, David's king, and one of Saul's sons is trying to become king over Israel. David's in Judah trying to figure out how this is all going to work out. And Joab's with David, but the general that's kind of leading Saul's son comes over and says, look, we just need to make peace. Let's come to terms so that we can just make you king and move on with our lives. And this guy killed Joab's little brother. So Joab finds out that he's in town, and as the guy has already left town, Joab meets up with the guy and stabs him in the stomach and kills him to get revenge for his little brother. And so David says, no, I had nothing to do with that, and that's not right. So David is telling Solomon here, you need to take care of Joab, and you need to just go ahead and administer justice. Because there were sanctuary cities in place for people that killed somebody accidentally, but Joab's murder was not an accidental killing. He did that intentionally and without right. So it's during this process that Adoniah decides to try and make another power grab. And what we see is that Adoniah or David, because he's so old, there was a custom that they would bring in somebody, a woman to sleep in with the king, just so that he could stay warm. And you read about that in the first part of First Kings. And so after David dies, Adoniah comes by and says, "Hey, I want that woman as my wife." And it's nothing pure. There's no good motives here. He strictly wants to try and do this so that he can try and make another power grab for the kingship. And so Solomon sees this and recognizes it for what it is, and says, "Kill Adoniah. He's not being an honorable man." So Adoniah's gone. Abiathar is removed from the priesthood, and what you see is that this is kind of the final moment of the curse against Eli's house. Not Eli over here, but Eli the priest from First Samuel. Because if you guys remember, when First Samuel starts off, Eli's house is the priestly family in charge of going before the Lord. But because Eli doesn't do a good job of raising his sons, that's why Samuel comes into place. And God specifically tells Samuel to relay the message to Eli that Eli's house is done as far as serving the Lord. And Abiathar is the last guy to go. And so Abiathar's removing from the priesthood, that's like the last step for God to fulfill this process. So Joab is punished, we talked about that already, and then Shimei is also punished. And if you go through the story in 2 Samuel, as Absalom, his own son, strikes up this rebellion against David, David and his whole company are leaving town, and this guy Shimei is from Saul's clan, Benjamin, and he's sitting here like taking dust, and he's flinging it at the king and the people, and he's throwing all these curses at David and his men, and David does nothing about it at the time, because his men are specifically saying, "Let's kill him. Just let me just take my sword out and strike this guy down for insulting you." And David says, "No, because if this is happening because of God, and if I'm never coming back, then why shouldn't I be cursed right now?" And, so David obviously is able to return. And so as David dies, he tells Shimei, or he tells Solomon, take care of Shimei because he doesn't deserve to live. And Solomon makes this deal with Shimei. And he says, "All right, look, you should die because of what you said. But instead, what I'm going to do is this. I'm basically going to place you under house arrest." He takes Shimei's territory and he says, "Look, you now have a plot of land here, right next to the palace and such. You're going to stay here. If I find out that you leave at all, you're going to die." And so it's like a few years later, and Shimei eventually finds out that some of his servants have run away. And Shimei goes after him. So it's bad enough that Shimei leaves the property, but it also turns out that Shimei runs over to Gath, which is neighboring territory with an enemy. So it looks really bad for Shimei regardless. And so Solomon finds out, pulls him in, and says, "I told you, if you ever left your house, you're going to die." Kills him right then and there. And this is all important because it kind of makes sure that it's understood that Solomon started under the best possible conditions to be a king. I mean, his dad has left him with a ton of wealth. I mean, David went through and throughout all of his campaigns, he's constantly, taking all the plunder, all the gold, everything that he's getting from these victories. And, what he doesn't give to the men, he's stockpiling for the specific purpose of building the temple. And so as he's doing this, David's already eliminated all the enemies. He's secured the land as it was supposed to be. And Solomon doesn't have to do that. Solomon doesn't have to worry about generating wealth. He doesn't have to worry about protecting the borders. And he doesn't even have to protect from internal struggles now. Solomon starts with the best possible circumstances to be king. So, we're going to read today from 1 Kings chapter 3. So go ahead and pull that up. We're going to read together. I think last week we started on this side, so we'll start over on this side this week. So, feel like you guys keep bouncing around on which side of your own.
I know. How many?
Let's see here. I think we can do with this many people. I think we can do 2 each, and that'd be okay. So.
Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his place in the temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people, however, were still sacrificing at the high places because the temple had not yet been built for the name of the Lord.
Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the instructions given him by his father David, except that he offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar.
At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want to give you." Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued to give this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day.
Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number.
So give your servants a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern these great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon asked for this.
So God asked him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, or have asked for the death of your enemies, but the discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I'll give you a wise, discerning heart, and there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there be."
Moreover, I'm not very good with words.
We're all tired today. It's okay.
I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me, keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life.
Then Solomon awoke. Then he had realized that it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all his court and wise men. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him.
Solomon said, "Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I were in the house, but I had a baby while she was there with me. The third day after worship, and this one also had a baby. We were alone, there was no one in the house, but this was up."
During the night, this woman's son died because she loved me. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, when I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had found. The other woman said, "No, the living son is my son. The dead one is yours, but the first one is 16 years old. The dead one is yours, but the living one is mine." Okay, so they argued before me.
The king said, "This one says, my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive." Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, "Cut the living child in two and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was filled with compassion for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. Then the king gave his ruling. Give the living baby to the firstborn. Do not kill him. She is his mother. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. Okay. So, what did you guys notice? What caught your eye?
Cutting the baby in two.
Cutting the baby in two?
And killing one of them. And fighting over him.
Yeah. Now, did Solomon actually intend to cut the baby in two?
No.
Right. And so,
But he made him do a sword just so they actually think he would do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's actually, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, I mean, it definitely accomplished the means that he was intending to, which was, you know, the woman who is the real mother to the living child is going to have enough compassion for her son that she's going to say, don't kill him, and give him up. So, anything else? Okay.
They
Well-
just said verse 14.
Verse 14. What about verse 14?
You know that how
Like if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees,
Uh-huh.
I will give you a long life.
Yeah. Anything particular? Anything particular about that verse that stands out to you? Or? Yeah. And of course, that's the command that, you know, God would give anybody is you know, walk in obedience to me. That's, you know, kind of the whole theme of the books of the kingdom is God asking his people, walk in obedience to me. You know, we see Saul, and Saul decides not to. He just kind of does his own thing, even though he's acting like he's walking in obedience. And God calls him out for it and says, no, you're not. I directly told you to kill all the Amalekites. And what did you do? You keep all the best stuff for yourself, and then you leave the king alive. You didn't kill everybody. They directly tries to challenge God and say, no, it didn't. It's like, really? The God that sees everything. You're going to say, no, it didn't. I mean, it's just stupid. You know, David does a really good job for the longest time. He eventually stumbles and isn't obedient as well. And now we see this with Solomon too. So yeah, walk in obedience. A big key theme that continuously is going to run through the book of Kings. So the main thing that we're going to be focusing in on today is right here in verses 1 through, it's actually 1 through 4. I don't know why I just said 1 through 3. But what are some things that you notice that are problematic in this section alone? What is Solomon doing, or what has he done in this section alone that he shouldn't have done?
Is it the one where it says, accept the offered sacrifices and burnt incense on the highest place? Please?
Yeah, that's gonna be one. That's gonna be one of the things that comes up
I'm
next.
also gonna say you probably should have married Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah. That was the first one that I noticed, is that he makes an alliance with Pharaoh to marry Pharaoh's daughter. Okay, and there's two problems with that. And the first one is that he married a foreigner, which they are absolutely not supposed to do. But there's also this issue with the alliance. Because are they supposed to be making alliances with foreign countries? Nope. And the funny thing about this, is that he makes an alliance with Pharaoh, and then he goes to Gibeon. Do you guys remember the story of the Gibeonites? What happens with the Gibeonites? Joshua and the people enter the land. First place they go to is Jericho. Rahab comes out and says, "Hey, I'll make you guys a deal. If you guys will spare my family, I want to be part of your community, but I'll keep your spies safe so that you guys can come in here and take the city." And they say, "Okay." And then after that, the whole rest of the promised land area, all those people that were living there, kind of find out about this, how Jericho is completely wiped out, and they start freaking out, and everybody else is like building up plans for war. The Gibeonites come over to Israel, and they make themselves look like they've come from a really far distance, and they make themselves look ragged and everything else, and they come up to the Israelites and say, "Please make a treaty with us that you'll never harm us or do anything to us, etc., etc., etc." And the Israelites say, "Okay, yeah, fine, we'll make this alliance with you." They weren't supposed to. And so it's this real irony that as Solomon is making an alliance with Pharaoh, he goes to Gibeon, which should be a direct reminder to him of don't make alliances. And it's just kind of really hysterical how funny that is that he doesn't catch on to that. Besides the fact that he's marrying a foreign woman that he knows he shouldn't be, he's doing it anyways. Okay, and then the other one was the sacrificing at the high places. Was that you, David? Okay, sorry, couldn't remember. Yeah, so we talked about the high places. So now it says the people were sacrificing at the high places first, but then we also see that that Solomon does it too. And it even says that Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the instructions given to him by his father, except that he offered sacrifices on the high places, and then he goes to the most important high place. All right? As you guys are reading through 1st and 2nd Kings, be watching for the high places, because that's going to be like the true judgment for the author of Kings as to the whether or not that king was good or bad. Because these things are bad news for the Israelites. And in this case, Solomon's using it for the purpose of offering sacrifices to God. And it's kind of hard to tell to a certain extent when you go through the text and when you go through like the study material on this kind of stuff, because it's almost uncertain as to whether or not prior to the temple, if the high places were a good thing, or if it was something that was allowed or not. It as far as I can tell, everybody basically says it was something that was not looked upon greatly, but there wasn't a temple, so, and the tabernacle was kind of hard to get to, so they just kind of said, okay, you can do your high places for now, but you need to get that temple made. And Solomon could have just completely focused all in on the temple, but what else is he building? His own place. He's busy building his own palace at the same time. And he's also building palaces for his other wives as well. Okay? And so he could have gone all in, gotten it done, and then made that the priority. And instead he's not. And so this is kind of the issue. And one thing that I didn't even catch this whole week while I was studying and looking after this. If you go to verse 15, it specifically says he returns to Jerusalem to go to the ark to make more sacrifices after the vision that God gives him, where God specifically says, I'll give you the wisdom that you're looking for. So even though he goes to the high place, as soon as the vision comes, he goes to the ark in Jerusalem. So he should know better that that's not a good place to go to. So this is kind of the key thing that we want to watch out for as we go through the book of Kings is the high places. All right? And so we see that Solomon, as you go through Solomon's story, it's really, really tragic because you see that he's influential, like we just saw. He's really wise. He is the wise ruler that we just saw there. The Queen of Sheba drops by to pay a visit to see if he really is as wise as everybody says he is. And he really is. I mean, he just keeps on spouting off information to her about any and every topic. And then, I mean, she can clearly see all of his wealth. It talks about Solomon's wealth to the extent that, like, if you gave somebody silver in Solomon's time frame, it was almost considered an insult because of how prevalent silver was. I mean, like, if I had a penny with me, I mean, it just goes to show how, I mean, worthless pennies are. I don't have any kind of change or, you know, whatever on me. But if I was to just give Seth a penny, how would you feel, Seth?
I think that
But I mean, like, how much can you buy with a penny?
you
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing you can buy with a penny. They've actually talked about expiring or retiring the penny because of how useless the penny really is at this point in our culture. It's just done. And that's kind of the way that they looked at silver, because Solomon brought in so much gold from all these other different places and all the other wealth that he had that people are just like, and, you know, they just didn't care. But he was also foolish. He was really influenced by unfaithful wives. We see this throughout the text as well. He just continues to take on more wives. And I did not put the scripture reference there, but he also takes on chariots and horses. And this is something that God specifically tells his people, don't build armies of chariots and horses. And the whole idea is because if they build up an army of chariots and horses, they're not going to think that they need to rely on God as much as they do, because they're going to think, I got chariots. I'm going to battle with chariots. Okay, so being obedient means getting things out of our lives that aren't godly, whether it's attitudes, possessions, and sometimes people. And that's one that we have to be kind of careful about, because obviously we still want to be an influence in other people's lives. But if somebody starts influencing us in ways that's going to start taking away from our obedience and devotion to Christ, then we need to start being able to tell that person, I need you to step away for a while. You know, we can still try and work with them, we can still try and talk with them, but if they're starting to have an influence on us, then we need to step back away from them and say, you're starting to have an effect on me. And you're starting to change me from who I need to be. So I need to step away for a little bit. Okay? Okay, so today we were going to have the softball tournament today. With all the rain, I think we're going to have to go ahead and cancel that. So I'm really sorry. I was really looking forward to that today. But we're going to do some games and such at 3 o'clock anyways. So if the parking lot's good enough, I might try and get like a little Nerf football or something like that and take that outside. But we'll still meet up at 3 o'clock and still have some fun.
s'mores afterwards still?
Yes,
Okay.
there will still, as long as it's not raining, we'll go outside and we'll have some s'mores. If it is, then we'll just microwave the marshmallows and put everything together from there. So yeah, still s'mores afterwards.
On the oven.
Huh? That's true. I didn't even think that you could do that. That's a good point. Okay, so next week we've got the Church Independence Day party.
Stove.
Yeah.
Stove.
So, okay. Something hot. All right, so next week we've got the Independence Day party. We're going to be here at 2:30. Oh, sorry. It's Heartland Devotional at 2:30. That's what that's for. And then we're going to come back to the building and we'll just kind of celebrate and kind of worship.
Second.
Yeah, that's the second. And next week is also when Will Spina will be here for his interview. So be looking out for him. So, all right, guys. Love y'all. I think you're awesome. Hope you guys are doing great. And if you guys weren't there yesterday and you didn't already hear, I got baptized yesterday in the Gulf of Mexico. Initiation of the group. Heal.